Welcome back to the channel. In this week's video, I'm going to introduce the first video that's highlighting the many different ways we can adapt our new vest pattern. And we've had some great feedback to the initial launch that we did this spring. So this first video is going to highlight what I'm going to call the cozy winter vest version and introduce lots of different ideas for how you can adapt it. So of course, with a winter version, I'm going to use some wool and make a shawl collar to make it very cozy. And I'm using up some James Brett stash yarn that I have, and you can always find the details on my Ravelry site. But I'm going to use the same hook, a 5.5, as I did for the initial vest, but I'm going to have a quite different gauge because, again, I'm going to switch up the stitch from our slip stitch pattern to a linked double crochet. So if you've watched previous videos, you know that I love to make adaptations. I love to be creative and edit things. And this means that we do have to do some crochet math, but I never find it perfect. It's much better to go off your measurements. So on the original pattern with the spring yarn, I was getting 5 stitches per inch on the slip stitch pattern. With the linked double crochet and 2 different colors, so 2 strands of this different wool yarn, my gauge on the linked double crochet is about 3.5 stitches per inch, so quite a bit different. Now we chained 44 on the original pattern. If I did some math on this much longer double crochet stitch, it was suggesting I should try chaining around 28. But again, I'm going off the measurements for the size medium as I demo this today, and I'm going to suggest you're going to need to chain 33. So again, don't entirely trust the math, go with your measurements. Now, this adaptation again has a lot going different. We have different yarn, different stitch, everything about the collar is going to be different. But we're pretty much following the exact same steps that we did for the first yarn. The first vest, and making the increases for the shoulder, the increases for the hem point, and so a very similar comfortable process. We just have fewer rows with this bigger double crochet stitch, and we're going to make 2 front panels exactly the same measurements that we did for the original pattern. So we've got our front panels. Now what about the back? I again did exactly the same size that I did for the size medium to create the back. I'm just adjusting my stitch counts for this larger stitch and the different weight of the yarn. And I'm creating again a back panel that has a slight dip for the neckline, but is pretty much exactly what we did for the first vest. So I've got a really good template to base all these changes on. And it was, again, a very easy pattern, a very easy yarn repeat to make this back panel. I made it the same exact width and length, and then I decided that I was going to add a belt to this one, just to, again, highlight the waist and have something different. Now, the third big change to this cozy winter version is I decided to add a shawl collar. Now, this made some bigger changes to what I had done with the slip stitch because you can easily put 2 slip stitches together and create a decrease that's smooth with a very thin stitch. But with a big double crochet stitch, it's not going to work that way. So if we're making the V-neck version in this kind of double crochet linked, I would do a staggered neck decrease. So that means I'm going to single crochet the first 4 stitches and then do my linked double crochet for the next 5 as I go from the shoulder down to the hem. When I come back up, I'm going to recommend that you stop before those 5 double crochet stitches that you did. And in the very first of those 5 stitches that you stopped at, you're simply going to single crochet into that, turn, and then start this repeat of single crochet 4, double crochet 5, change your marker, and you are going to get, as I show here in the summer vest version, a really nice staggered neckline that is much easier to manage when you have these bigger stitches. So if you like this kind of adaptation, watch for next week's video because I will walk you through in detail how we're doing this. But again, we're going to just stagger that neckline following exactly what we did for the original vest. And I actually did it, the shawl collar, to the same length as where the vests cross over here. Now, we talked about short rows if you had to make bust increases, and that's what I did in order to create this shawl collar. So you can see here across the back of the neck, I did quite a few short rows in order to give me that sort of thicker collar to turn, but I wanted it to be sort of a delicate shawl collar, so I didn't do as many short rows along the front because I wanted it to, again, tailor to a nice point and not be a really heavy shawl collar. I was looking more for the just, you know, change up on the collar style, but I didn't want a big roll on a thick collar. So that was how I did the shawl collar on, again, this cozy winter version. I kept everything else the same. I did do the border stitch, and it turned out to be a lovely cozy version of our vest with just some minor adaptations that I think an intermediate crochet person could do. I then did everything else exactly the same to block and finish off the vest. You can add buttons exactly the way you did the buttonholes on the first vest. And voila, we have a lovely winter version of our vest in, I must admit, a very itchy yarn. But the person that I'm giving this to absolutely loves a wool. And so they're going to be very happy wearing this version of our cozy winter vest. So those were some of the changes. You can again follow the pattern along as long as you're comfortable knowing your measurements. It was following the same steps that we did for the original pattern. We're just making some changes. Again, I did the thicker border stitch. I'm adding a shawl collar, and I'm using a different linked double crochet stitch pattern. So again, a very easy repeat, and I used 2 strands. Now, if you liked that sort of staggered neckline sneak peek at the blue and white summer version, let's stay tuned and connect again next week, where I'm going to do a very detailed tutorial step by step on how to do a very, again, different stitch and create a polo neck version for your summer version of the vest. Again, thanks for all the subscriptions, the likes, the follows, and keep those comments coming.